Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's webinar. My name is Dave Ludgate, and on behalf of the Water Environment Society, I'd like to welcome you all here for the webinar entitled Drought Management Case Study for Wexford. So 2025 brought unprecedented water restrictions across Ireland, including water conservation orders, as prolonged dry spells impacted supply. This webinar will provide an insight into Ireland's approach to managing drought conditions, focusing on proactive measures and water conservation. We have two guest speakers from Uisce Éireann. They will outline their drought management approach, framework for monitoring and response, water conservation orders, why are they necessary and how they were implemented, and then the Wexford case study, a deep dive into local challenges and solutions during drought conditions. So just a little bit of housekeeping. This meeting is being recorded. We ask that if you do have any questions for either speaker, can you put them into the Q&A tab, and we'll run through them at the end of their presentations. Just for your record, the question and answer session won't be recorded. So with that, I'll get on to the speakers. First speaker is Zuzana O'Neill, a water resource planner from Uisce Éireann. Zuzana brings over 8 years of experience across Ireland's water sector. She played a key role in implementing Ireland's first national water resources plan, shaping long-term strategies for sustainable water supply. Currently, Zuzana leads the delivery of Uisce Éireann's drought management strategy, focusing on resilience, conservation, and proactive planning to address climate-driven water challenges. Second speaker will be Padraig Lyng, Water Network Operations and Maintenance Manager with Uisce Éireann. Padraig has over 9 years experience working in water services for both local authority and Uisce Éireann. He came into the public sector after working in multiple countries in private sector construction roles from site engineer to project manager. Padraig managed the Wexford drought response and will present the Wexford case study, including coordinated conservation measures, leak detection programs and community engagement during the county-wide water conservation order. His insights will highlight practical lessons from Wexford on drought in 2025. And with that, I'll hand over to Zuzana.
Perfect, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening. And I know that it's middle of the January, it's dark outside, and it was a very, very wet day in the west of Ireland. So it's probably the last thing everyone wants to talk about is drought. But still, I really hope that you will enjoy this presentation, and you have plenty of questions for me and Padraig at the end. And let's hope these slides move. Okay, perfect. So today we are going to present on the drought management approach, water conservation orders, and Padraig will present on the Wexford case study. And I just would like to show you an example how drought might impact our water supplies. So this is a big example of Loch Columkill in Donegal. So that's a supply for our Milford supply. And this picture was released as part of our press release in May last year. And what you can actually clearly see the shoreline of the lake and how the lake bed is exposed. You can see that there is a line here where the lake level reaches when the lake is full. And we had to pump water into the water treatment plant via submerged pipeline in order to maintain supply to our customers in Milford. And this example is from Inishkara Dam in 2018. So Inishkara is a main water supply for Cork City, and the lake level at the dam dropped below the level of the intake, and we had to apply emergency solution. So what you can see on the picture is a floating pontoon where 3 pumps are attached to it, and water is pumped into the water treatment plant in order to maintain the water supplies. So these are just 2 examples how drought impacts water supplies. So firstly, the National Water Resources Plan is our plan to identify how we will provide safe, sustainable, secure and reliable water to our customers. now and into the future. As part of the National Water Resources Plan, we published what we call Appendix E drought planning. And this Appendix E includes our approach to drought risk. It looks at drought management processes like drought indicators. It looks at drought actions. It outlines environmental monitoring and mitigations, drought communications, post-drought activities. So at the moment, we are currently undertaking review of the National Water Resources Plan and also the drought planning strategy. And this will be published as part of the second iteration of the National Water Resources Plan. I also included a link here, and I will also post it in the chat. So if you would like to have a look, you can definitely have a look after the presentation. So firstly, what is drought and how do we track it? So drought is a prolonged period of dry weather that can occur anywhere in the world. There is no universal definition of drought, and drought impact different regions differently. Therefore, we can't compare drought situation in Ireland to droughts in, for example, Australia or in Spain or in California. So how do we track drought in Ireland? We abstract water from over 1,000 of abstractions, and each abstraction is unique. However, there are common indicators that we can use in order to help us to track drought. So firstly, we look at rainfall and standardized precipitation index. So the standardized precipitation index is a worldwide used drought index, and it looks at rainfall accumulation values for a given period compared to the long-term averages. So what you can see here is, for example, standardized precipitation index 1, and you can see that all of Ireland turns red. So what it means that in March 2025, we experienced below average rainfall everywhere across the country. And these indicators are indicators of climatological drought. Then we use soil moisture deficit. So this is a saturation of soil as an indicator of agricultural drought. Then we also look at lake levels, river flows, and groundwater levels to track hydrological drought. Then we also look at impact of the dry prolonged periods on our demand and also impact on communities. So this picture shows diving board in Mullingar at Loch Owl, and this diving board was closed for most of 2025 because of low lake level. And this is really a direct impact on a community when the locals could not enjoy this amenity because of the low lake levels. So now, when I outlined all the indicators, you might be wondering, so what do we actually do in Uisce Éireann to mitigate drought? So firstly, we have our water scarcity tracker. So this tracker is filled in by our asset operations staff who experience issues on the ground. And it is a way how they let us know there is an issue. And we also provide further support when it comes to actions to take in order to mitigate drought. And there is a snip of the water scarcity tracker here on the right side. And I think the snip is from approximately in July. So you can actually see there's lots of sites that report issues. We also have a drought monitoring dashboard. So this dashboard tracks the indicators I outlined on the previous slide. And it is an internal dashboard. It's very interactive, and it's our way how we can keep an eye on the situation in a very quick way. This dashboard updates twice a week, but we can make it updated every day if we really need to. And this is how we keep an eye on the situation and how let's say how is the situation developing. And then we have a national water scarcity group. We actually had a meeting today, and this national water scarcity groups reviews the water scarcity tracker and discuss potential issues. So this group is like Uisce Éireann cross-sectoral group. And so there is, let's say, work colleagues from communications or from customer, who deal with customer complaints, or with asset operations. So we all come together and discuss discuss the issues and actions that each section within Uisce Éireann is taking in order to keep us all informed. Then we have a regional incident management groups. So these groups were set up last year because we had so many sites that were reporting issues, and it was just very difficult to keep an eye on them nationally. So we set up these regional incident management groups, and they looked at more regional issues and take more like a regional approaches, let's say like a communication approaches. And last year we set up 3 drought task forces. So these task forces were set up for Logbon in Gils Oldcastle, for Loch Ool in Milford, and for Loch Columkill in Donegal. And these task forces looked at contingency planning. So at some point, you know, we saw that we might have a very big potential issue. And when we look at, let's say, we predicted a few scenarios, and we were getting ready for these scenarios ahead of, you know, what was happening, because we were not sure if the situation will continue or not continue, and we wanted to make sure we are prepared for every possible situation to maintain supplies for our customers. So these task forces proved to be very helpful in doing that and maintaining supply. And a little bit different to that, we do also a lot of stakeholder engagement. So stakeholder engagement, just to give you a little bit of example, we have a joint obstruction at Loch Ool in Mullingar with Waterways Ireland and Inland Fisheries Ireland. And we met with them every week and discussed the actions that we are taking in order to reduce our obstruction from the lake, but also they also took actions to reduce obstruction, and it was really joint effort to maintain our obstructions from Loch Ool during a drought. But also in general, when it comes to drought, we consult with the Environmental Protection Agency, with the National Parks and Wildlife Services, in general with Inland Fisheries Ireland, with the Commission of Regulation of Utilities, with interested community groups. And of course, I can't forget the department. So last year we sent them the water scarcity tracker and commentary on a weekly basis to keep them in the loop. And we also keep in the loop local authorities, local TDs, local councillors, and the Office of Taoiseach of all the proposed water conservation orders that we are going to issue. So everyone is notified prior to the issue of the water conservation orders. And all of these really feed into the drought plans. And I just want to give you a little bit of flavor how this drought plan might look like. So this is an example of draft drought action plan for Skibbereen. And this example, it's just something that we started to draft at this point in time, and it still might change by the time we go and actually publish these. And I just want you to note one thing, that all the drought management plans will undergo the environmental impact assessment and the natural impact statement and appropriate assessment prior to the publishing. So I'm not really going to talk about environmental issues in here, but however, they'll be, of course, considered as part of the final plan. So firstly, what we did is we determined our drought stages, and the drought stages are normal operation, close monitoring, drought watch, drought warning, drought emergency drought, and post-drought. And these drought stages were already determined as a first iteration of the National Water Resources Plan, and we already consulted on them. Then secondly, we started to determine what are our early indicators. So we determined that standard precipitation index and soil moisture deficit would fit the best for the early warning indicators. And they were also consulted within the first iteration of the National Water Resources Plan. And then we developed site-specific drought triggers. So when we are looking at Skibbereen, Skibbereen takes water from River Éireann. So we look at the river flow, the River Éireann flow, and they took it as our figure. So we look at Q95 environmental flow. And for example, if we are below Q95 for 11 days, we can say, okay, more likely we are in drought situation. And we also look at the rainfall rainfall, how many days there is predicted rainfall for, and also a climatological drought. So once we have these drought triggers develop, then we can start assigning different actions to different drought stages. So I just want to give you a few examples of drought actions, and this is a site-specific drought action. So all these actions might not fit with all the supply. So therefore, we'll be developing these actions site-specific to each site because they are bespoke to each site. But for example, for normal operation, the drought action is just business as usual. But in close monitoring, we are getting ready for upcoming drought and start to collect hydrological data for further analysis. In a drought watch, we would start to gather information on the potential drought and log it into the water scarcity tracker. In case of skibbereen, we would start looking and reviewing tankering strategy. We would start early stakeholder engagement, and we would start water conservation public awareness campaign. In a drought warning stage, we would more likely start pressure management plan and active leakage reduction. We would start data gathering for the technical justification for water conservation order, further stakeholder engagement, and further water conservation public awareness campaigns. In the drought stage, the water conservation order would be more likely in place. We would prepare daily reporting reports. We would do extensive stakeholder engagement and more likely prepare for tankering. And in emergency drought, the water conservation order is still in place. And we would more likely then tanker water to Skibbereen if required, or to some parts of Skibbereen, and more likely that would be tankering from Cork City. And one unique thing about Skibbereen is that there is a large non-domestic customer in Skibbereen, and it's also a big employer for local community. And we met with this large non-domestic customer, and we explained the drought planning work that we are doing, and we preliminarily agreed with them that in the case of emergency, in emergency drought, they would reduce or stop their production in order to protect the water supply for domestic customers. And in post-drought review, we would complete the review and lessons learned and update the draft drought action plan accordingly. And as for restrictions, the water conservation order would be more likely implemented in drought and emergency drought scenarios. And I just would like to explain more the water conservation orders. So the water conservation orders is also known as a hosepipe ban. Actually, hosepipe ban, that's how would they call it really in the UK, but it means completely the same thing as the water conservation order. I think that sometimes people are just confused about the terminology, but they mean basically completely the same thing. So the water conservation order is a legal process under the Water Supply Act of 2007, and it outlines Uisce Éireann's power to issue this water conservation order to suppress demand, to relieve the pressure on water supplies through the prohibition of certain non-essential activities for a specified period. So the prohibition is regarding the use of hosepipe for watering a garden, car and boat washing, filling in bottling pools, maintaining ornamental fountains, artificial ponds, or lakes. In order for us to issue the water conservation order, we have to provide technical justification for water conservation order. So this technical justification is a technical report which outlines the need for the water conservation order. And just for a reference, again, the water conservation order is a legal process. It's the highest restriction we can impose on our customers. And the water conservation order has to be agreed by the board and signed by the board member in order to issue it. And the technical justification forms part of the water conservation order, along with the maps of affected areas. And this technical justification usually includes what is the rainfall, the indicators like the standardized precipitation index, soil conditions, again, river flows, lake levels, groundwater levels, the relative conditions of the time of the year, impact on demand, what is impact on our operations, what is weather forecast for next few weeks? What was our communications coverage so far? and what actions were taken by asset operations, and all of that formed the technical justification. So again, it's a technical report and it's around 40 pages and it's available to anyone. It's usually just published on water.ie and anyone can have a look at it. And I would like to spend a little bit of time on this slide and on the timelines of the water conservation orders. So first ever water conservation order was issued in 2018. It was nationwide water conservation order. And just to give you an example, the demand in the Greater Dublin area overnight dropped by 8% regarding this water conservation order. So our customers made a really big effort into reducing their demand back in 2018. Then the second water conservation order was issued in 2020. It was National Water Conservation Order and lasted for a month because then we saw a recovery and it started to rain. In 2022, the water conservation order was issued for West Cork area for approximately a month towards the end of the summer. And last year was a big year for water conservation orders. So we issued water conservation order for Kells, Oldcastle, Mullingar and Milford for a 6-month period. And for Cork, excluding Cork City, Tipperary, Waterford and Wexford for approximately 7-week period over summer months. And the reason for issuing these water conservation orders was for Milford, Kells, Oldcastle and Mullingar, the lake levels were very low at the start of the year. They were actually low since autumn 2024, and we usually see recovery in the springtime. However, we did not see any recovery, and we started very low in these lake levels, and we were very worried to maintain water supply for our customers. Therefore, we issued the water conservation orders. And then for the 4 counties, the demand was very, very high for these 4 counties. Therefore, it was necessary to manage the peaks. And you might really wonder, what does this water conservation orders really do for us? And these water conservation orders really, what do? Is they manage the peak. So when you imagine your water supply and it's already stretched, and all of a sudden the really good weather is coming and you have a big peak that imposes a further stretch on the water supply, and then maybe outage could occur because you are already struggling and you might struggle even more. But these water conservation orders actually help us to manage these peaks. And when we had a look at the similar water resource zones in which we had the water conservation order imposed to the ones which they were not on the water conservation order, we could clearly see that the water conservation order is really helping us to manage these peaks. So that's really how we see the benefit in the water conservation orders. But also, even when we issue the water conservation order, it's our way how to tell our customers there is a potential issue with the water supply as well, and we need to manage the demand. So it's also our way how to communicate with our customers there is a potential issue as well. And you might be interested in this. So when we issued the water conservation orders this year, the demand reduced by our customers would be 2 to 5%. So the water conservation orders, there is a big piece on the communications on that. So every year we issue National Water Summer Conservation Campaign. And last year, Catherine Thomas was our water ambassador. And the water conservation orders were a lot in the media last year, like for example, like on RTE, on Virgin Media. We had our colleagues speaking in the local radios and podcasts. So it was really big year for our communication team to really pull this all together, because there was so much of communications coverage last year regarding the water conservation orders. And we also prepared a water hub, water conservation hub, where there were all the tips how to conserve water in one place, and also all the water conservation orders and updates were also posted in this water hub. So all the information was in one place. And lastly for me, I just would like to outline a few water conservation actions you can take at home. So firstly, I would like to say that water is a precious resource and we all have a part in order to conserve it. So we take water out of the environment, treat it in our water treatment plants, deliver it to Irish homes via 6 to 8,000 kilometers of distribution network. And our customers just open and close the tap at any point of day and night. And then we provide clean and safe water to our customers. And then the water is treated in our wastewater treatment plants and returned back to the environment. So it's a very, very unique process. And I think that everyone really needs to play a part to conserve water. And what we are asking our customers is to make only small little changes in their lives to conserve water. And even these small little changes can make a really big deal to us in order to, to preserve water. So on our website, you will find lots of information and tips how to conserve water. And I post a link to our water conservation calculator where you can calculate your approximate water usage, and also it gives you tips from your bespoke water usage, how you can conserve water. It's a really great way how to save water is water saving devices, checking for leaks, especially now in the wintertime when we have a freeze-thaw conditions, especially actually this week or last week when it was icy, but also let's say for in a farming, there's lots of leaky water traps, just check for those as well. It's so easy to report a leak. You just go on Water Today, there is a button, report a leak, and there's like one field that you have to fill in where the leak is, and someone from Uisce Éireann will come and fix that leak. And we also have a first fix-free leak repair. If you have a leak on your domestic property, again, you just click on the button, say where your house is, and someone will come and fix the leak for free. We also have a water stewardship program for our non-domestic customers that Padraig will touch on a little bit in the presentation as well. And it's all from me. Thank you very much. And I will hand over to Padraig.
Thank you, Zuzana, and thank you, Engineers Ireland, for having me on today. I'm just going to give a very brief overview, I suppose, of what's happened in Wexford in the last couple of years and where we're kind of looking for the future. So there is a new resource zone, water resource zone for Wexford. We're calling it South Wexford. It used to be 3 separate areas of Wexford, Mayglass and Taylorstown. There's over 50,000 customers served and over 900 kilometers of distribution mains. There's 4 sources: the River Sow, the Coolry Reservoir, Mayglass Wellfield and the Owenduff River. And there's 3 treatment plants in Newtown, Mayglass and Taylorstown. So this is a zone that we've just redetermined this past year due to interconnection of them and issues across that zone. So if you want to go on, Zuzana, please. So I guess to go back to 2022-23 when the FLA was announced for Wexford Town, my predecessor in the role started to look at where the possible issues could be, and had many meetings with Zuzana and their team at the time, and went to look at where they could make improvements to make sure that I suppose it would go off without a hitch on a wastewater side of things. You can see here, this is the amount of projects that they done in the lead up to the FLA. From a new upgraded water treatment plant in Newtown, which is just kind of coming to the close now, to the other big one really for us was they drilled 2 new wells and extended the capacity at Fardystown. So they went from 10,000 cubic meters a day to 13,000 cubic, which has made a big difference in the last couple of years for us. That's not to say the other items aren't to be forgotten about. The leakage reduction and the water stewardship, which we engaged with 4 key users at the time. And we're hoping to go back out to, or are going back out to more users here now. I'll come on to that in a minute. But yeah, no, look at it. There was a lot of work done at the time into coming up to the FLA in 2024. Next one there, Zuzana, if you can, please. Yeah, so they came up then beforehand, I suppose, and done a review afterwards, but they looked at the bank holiday in 2023, looked at the average demand and the peak demands, and came up with a system, I suppose, to tell themselves when what was going to be acceptable for levels of usage. You can see there the green was 19.5, amber was 20.5, and red was 21. So those levels cause different items for us in operations. If we get to 20.5, we're starting to see operational issues. And red at 21 for this Mayglass Wexford Town supply would really mean that we're looking at restrictions across the area. So they ran different scenarios. Obviously, the do nothing scenario would have led to, major impact of outages and low reservoirs, reputational damage to ourselves, and extreme workload for the staff on the ground. Luckily, like I say, for the improvements they made, they were able to get through the flat in 2024. The increase to the well field in Fardystown and the increases in Newtown were sufficient to get through that. And so out of that, originally this graph was brought up. You can see the grey line is 2024 usage, and that red section here is to do with the week of the flat. So look, I suppose 2024 went off very nicely. There was an increase in demand in that week. I came into the role early 2025 and everything was looking fine. But then we started to see the major peaks early in the year. That's when we definitely started to look closer with Zuzana and their team and look around why that usage is there. We were sending more water to Taylorstown because that supply was under pressure. You can see roughly there where the water conservation order came into play, and it kind of flattened out for that week or that month across August. Without it, I don't think we would have been able to stay out of that red zone, to be honest. It was touch and go there, whether we could keep reservoirs full and keep everything operational for that month. And again, a huge effort by the team on the ground to do so, but it was definitely a required thing for this summer was the water conservation order. So part of the issue, I suppose, for the last year, the reservoir levels in Coolree dropped significantly. As you can see there in the pictures, that's from June. It actually dropped a good bit below that as the summer went on. This creates problems with manganese in the lake, and the supply into Newtown then has to be restricted, which means the capacity at Newtown is restricted. So additional supply has to come in from Mayglass to supplement Wexford Town. Along with this increase into Wexford Town, there was an increase sent to the South Regional Network, and that pushed Mayglass to its maximum production of the 13 megalitres a day over July and August. Luckily, like I say, they had done the work to get to 13 megalitres a day, because without, again, we would have been in major trouble. Going into the future, unfortunately, this dam is required to be taken out of service for about 16 to 18 months. There's remediation work on the dam. Right now, it's dropped below the top water level because there's infiltration and leakage at that top water level. During those works, additional supply will be required to supplement the area across. So that's something that we've been looking at for the past year. So the initial steps that we had was redefine Wexford, Fardystown and South Regional supplies into a new water resource zone. We call it South Wexford. It creates a larger zone with more focused approach, and it gives us an increased understanding of the future demand. We developed a supply-demand balance tool to predict the future growth and the effects that has on the demand. We've been working to develop a tool to give visibility on the future connections. As we're all aware, there's lots of housing obviously going on, and there's a lot of housing estates, especially in Wexford Town, which is going to have a massive impact on the demand in the years to come. It gives increased leakage detection and conservation, increased funding for those operating in that area, and an increased priority in a larger zone. And then we've gone back again to stewardship for key accounts. So we've re-engaged with previous participants, and we're encouraging additional commercial customers to start stewardship programs. So what it meant, I suppose, in the short term, a task force was set up when the issues started to arise around May and the levels really started to raise. It started to raise alarm bells. So a task force was set up to bring the various internal sections together to explore solutions using existing infrastructure in the short term. So we had two upgrade projects already underway in Enniscorthy. This could use existing pipework to supplement into part of the Sound network. We'd have to use some additional boosters, but we can move water, I suppose, from Enniscorthy down to Sow, and then Sow is connected into Wexford Town. So with some small upgrades in the Sow and Kilmallock water treatment plant, we're able to produce additional water there, which can be moved into Wexford Town. Taylorstown itself, we're just doing some water management on one of the reservoirs to reconfigure it and hopefully bring it back in a disused reservoir to give us a better interconnection with Mayglass. And then Mayglass, we're doing some works on filter media renewal and rehabilitating another borehole at Snails Bush, and then increasing the capacity in the high-lift pumps so we can, what water is there, we can get it pumped up when the reservoir at the site starts to go low. Yeah, so the stewardship program at it, again, back in 23 and 24, they went out to some key accounts. You know, it trains businesses to assess for water usage, effective water conservation measures, and areas that they may be able to improve on. At the time, it done great. Now, unfortunately, one of our big users, their levels did go back up last summer, again, with good, it's an agricultural-based business, and with good weather and good demand that they needed more water. But we do, like Zuzana says, we do have connections with a lot of the big users. We have been able to call them up and ask them to turn off if they have reservoirs to turn off for like 24 or 48 hours, and they've been more than acceptable to do that, which has been great in a really short-term measure, but it's not something that we can really do all the time. So we are going back to another round of stewardship. We're hoping to get over 130 of our main commercial customers signed up to, there's varying degrees, I suppose, like week-long, one-day and half-day courses in what water conservation and what they can do for us. And then I suppose just briefly, the long-term approach that we've been working on here inside Uisce Éireann is 2 new well fields to serve that whole area. So you see there, it basically a new water treatment plant at Carrickburn and additional storage. This would pump into Wexford Town and into Ballycallan, which is part of the Taylorstown South Regional Supply Zone. Phase 1 is already underway. We're doing trial weld and yield testing. We've got 4 complete. We're hoping to do a phase 1 project of about 6 megalitres a day, which would be all coming into Wexford Town, but further phases to follow after that. There is a large deficit, I suppose, coming down the track. It is in that South Regional or South Wexford area. Again, through looking at the numbers with Zuzana's team and looking at the numbers and new connections, it's something that really highlighted through the task force that we have a bigger issue coming to us. So this is our hopeful solution to get towards that. I think that should be me, Zuzana. Thank you again, everyone, for joining, and any questions?
Fantastic. Thanks, Zuzana. Thanks, Padraig. That was a great presentation, 2 great presentations on a very pertinent topic. And unfortunately, I think it's something that, even though, Zuzana, you covered it, we are a country that was known for our rain and water, but it's something that's going to be coming up a lot more in the future.